Thank you all for coming. We appreciate that you've chosen to spend what is the last afternoon of the last weekend of the summer of 2011 with us. We're here. And we know that some of you are forsaking watching the Cowboys 49ers game. We'll try to get you some scores. Giants Rockies and Tigers and Oakland A's. Tigers won the American League Central Division. Marty's got to be happy about that. Marty is from Detroit area. And the choice to be here was probably easier for some of you who have forsaken maybe mowing the lawn or stuff like that. So thank you all for coming. And regardless of what you had to give up to be here, thanks very much. Do you need me a little closer? Can you hear okay? Okay. We are presenting this book signing this afternoon in collaboration with the Avid Reader bookstore right here in Davis, and we really appreciate them coming out to be with us today. Alzada Knickerbocker and Gina Farney will be there selling books for any of you that don't have any already, and for those of you who do, they'll be happy to sell you more. We also appreciate Sunwork making the space available to us today. And without the Avid Reader and without Sunwork, we would probably not be doing a book signing. So thank you all. And we also are truly appreciative of the dozens of musical performers, as well as members of their families and their friends, producers, who helped us develop the book and work closely with us. We're honored to have one of them here today with us, and I'll introduce him in a couple of minutes. Preparation of both our first book, Echoes of the 60s, and of this book, Where Have All the Pop Stars Gone, truly was a collaborative effort with the musicians themselves. It wasn't just a matter of interviewing them, writing the book, and publishing it. We worked closely with them. In most cases, we had multiple conversations with them. Spent some time with many of them, and in each case, they reviewed and helped us polish the manuscripts to make sure that what was printed ultimately was accurate, was the truth, and was interesting as well. So a large part of the process was determining what to exclude as well as what to include, because some of them told us some great stories that really weren't appropriate for publication. So, even though our new book is titled, Where Have All the Pop Stars Gone, Volume 1, it's not the first book we've written. It's actually kind of the second in a series. The first book was called Echoes of the 60s, and we decided we needed to change the name because the performers featured in this book were not strictly tied to the 60s. A couple of them actually got their start in the late 50s. That would be the Kingston Trio and Bobby V, as well as Chris Montez. And so we didn't want to tie it down to a particular era, because there will be other books to follow, and they won't necessarily be part of the 60s. We'll be looking at the 70s also. So Where Have All the Pop Stars Volume 1 in our second book is kind of like the practice of some buildings have a ground floor and then a first floor. That's actually a practice in the United Kingdom. And then you get up to the 12th floor, and some buildings skip the 13th and go to the 14th, so then it evens out. So then the 14th floor really is the 14th floor if the building has a ground floor and a first floor, which kind of is what a 60s pop group called the 13th floor elevators were ridiculing. And a lot of the groups from the 60s had come up with some really, really creative names for their bands, including the 13th floor elevator. And how many of you here remember some other fun names from the 60s? The Flying Burrito Brothers. There was the Bonzo Dog Doodah Band. Bubble Puppy. Three Dog Night. There was the Nitty Gritty Dirt Band. Badfinger. Them, just simply called Them. Jerry and the Pacemakers, and that's not funny in itself, but we're kind of wondering how many of those guys may have had to have implants in their later years. There was a group called Diggy Do and the Don'ts. They were kind of from the 50s, but the name was too good to exclude. Little Caesar and the Romans were also from the 50s. The Plastic Ono Band. Commander Cody and his Lost Planet Airmen. Do you remember? The Trashmen. Mott the Hoople, and the association, a chapter about which is included in our book. The association is composed of some guys who previously were members of a band, of a group called The Men, simply called The Men, and another one, some of the other guys came from a group called the Inner Tubes. Well, the names of a lot of 60s bands were inspired by musicians with an obvious case of the Munchies. There was the Chocolate Watch Band, Strawberry Alarm Clock, Moby Grape, the Electric Prunes, the Vegetables, Ultimate Spinach, the Lemon Pipers, Peanut Butter Conspiracy, Captain Beefheart and his Magic Band, the 1910 Fruit Gum Company, and there were others. We didn't think of all of them, but we're convinced that despite that, all the good names were used up. And so by the time the 1980s came around, the band names were getting pretty weird. What else could explain the truly wacky names of these are actual band names of real honest-to-goodness bands. Puddle of Mud, Toad the Wet Sprocket, Panic at the Disco, Fine Young Cannibals, Tub Ring, that's the name of a band, Lubricated Goat, Colonel Bruce Hampton and the Aquarium Rescue Unit, the Secretions, that's a Sacramento band, the Secretions, the Cardigans, we figure inspired by Mr. Rogers. Okay, hope this isn't offensive to anybody, but crack this up. Jehovah's Waitresses. Leftover Salmon. And you remember the Average White Band from the 70s? There's a band now, the Above Average Weight Band. There's also Echo and the Bunnymen, a group called Lee Cresson and the Nails. And this was absolutely the best one. This is a real band, Honest Bob and the Factory to Dealer Incentives.